Afternoon, everybody. AJ here again, and I'm going to finish off my grading for the Hobbit set. Just have the commons to go. Um, I've posted another video for the uncommons and talking through them and my thinking behind the grading. As I mentioned in that, this is primarily to share among some groups that I interact with for thinking about cards for a new set for limited play, draft and sealed. But it's available to the public, and if you want to comment or get in touch with your views, agree or disagree with anything I've said, or maybe point out something I've missed or even misread, yeah, that's perfectly fine. Quite new to the recording process, and something I didn't do for the uncommons is actually read out every card, so I will be doing that here so people can have an audio only option rather than having to have YouTube. So I'm just going to pick a card and jump right in. So you've got Smog, the Great Calamity, 5 red for a 5/5 flying. And it's got an Adventure, Spew Flame, 4 red, Sorcery Adventure, 5 damage to target creature. I assuming there is some sort of slower, more deliberately paced red deck, and it's not just about curving out with very small creatures in turns 1 to 3. If there is any sort of mid-rangey red deck or classic limited, I can't see it not wanting Smog. Just 4 red, 5 damage to a creature, draw a 5/5 flying dragon for sometime later. It's great. I don't think it needs to be prioritized. And it probably fits into the like C minus D plus level. So I go through the cards in a random order, and one of the reasons for this is that if you go through all of white, you can kind of end up being a little bit biased towards focusing on like what the interactions in white are rather than just thinking about the individual card. And you can have instances of, oh, like these two white cards work really well together, so I'll grade them both up. Which it will be the case that they'll have synergies at some point later when you're building decks and playing with the cards. But I try to think about the cards sort of in a vacuum first, with some assumption based on how I expect the format to play out or how they might interact with core mechanics in the set. But yeah, going through random cards, it sort of, I don't know, I find it useful. It keeps me on my toes. A lot of the time, these lands, so this is Lake Town, enters tapped, taps for blue or white, and blue-white 2, tap, sack this land, put 2+1/+1 counters on target human you control, activate as a sorcery. I don't know if there's a cycle of these for each creature type of the 5 color pairs that are supported in the set. I assume there is. So I assume at common, they're just the white-red one would sacrifice to put counters on the dwarf, for instance. A lot of the times people will lump these cards together and just kind of go, they're all C minus or they're all C or whatnot. I think that's a little mistake in that if you say have a deck that wants to curve out or has like a decent amount of ones, let's say white red, the tap land is actually a cost. If you have a deck that has a lot of different pips, if there's one particular color combination that like has specific pips, double pipped cards like red or black, then that multi-land might increase a little bit. What I'm trying to get to is that there is always, I think, a little delineation between them, that they don't always all fit into the same bucket. That said, I am generally quite high on multi-lands. I will play them, especially ones with give you an out. The adventure side of things already offers some kind of late game mana sink, so I don't see you struggling to have use to spend your mana somewhere. But having the effect of just putting 2 counters on something, even if it's at a sorcery and you're losing a land in the later game, that's a relevant thing, yeah. Anything that helps mitigate flooding a little bit, like you get to play more effectively more lands, make sure you hit your land drops, and also then have the ability to turn some of them into a soft or pseudo spell. So blue-white is generally looking to do kind of draw 2 or draw and discard effects. That does suggest to me that, like, excuse me, Um, it's a sort of deck that may, by its nature, promote a slightly longer game where you get to do the draw and discard effects multiple times. Like that's what you're trying to do with the deck to get the triggers turn on turn. That might point to the direction of it being like a slightly slower color combination if it is indeed true that it's trying to do or lean on heavily on this draw like the second card in a turn cycle. Obviously, if it has that ability to trigger something, it wants more instances of turn cycles to trigger those draw two effects more, or the benefits from the draw two effects rather. Um, to me, then that might say Lake Town is like one of the better ones of the cycle that I would be more. I not just sure I'll take it if it comes late, but I might actually prioritize this multi-land in specifically blue-white as a like slightly higher pick than maybe a different color combination, like white-red as I pointed. So it's just to give a bunch of context as to why I kind of try to delineate between the lands. So for the blue-white one that sacks to put a counter on a human, I'm gonna say C plus. Magnificent End, white 4 for an instant. 5 damage to a creature, and it costs 3 less if it's targeting a tapped creature. These are usually okay. I'm assuming 5 damage is enough to kill most things in the set. I think it is based on what I've read so far. It's not exile or just straight up destroy. So there are some cards that it won't just cleanly take out. And 5 damage for an instant speed 5 mana for an instant speed 5 damage card is a lot, and that's not something I generally want to play. I also think that from what I've seen, there do appear to be a lot of tokens or slightly smaller creatures in the set. So I'm expecting, unless I get the discount, this is going to be trading down on the cost of the creature it targets quite a lot of the time. I think there's probably better interaction in white, but I might begrudgingly play one Magnificent End in some decks. Better in control decks, obviously, but I think white, yeah. I think I'm going to land on like D plus C minus level for this. Front Porch Sentries is a 2/2 for black 1 Goblin Soldier. When it dies, target creature and opponent controls get -1/-1 until end of turn. So, one of the things that we consistently see in limited sets is just the importance of two drop creatures, and especially highlighting ones that are a little better than just vanilla 2 drops, or like 2/1s with first strike when attacking, maybe. So that kind of thing. The fact that this can trade off and also take out a token when it goes, or trade into a 3 toughness creature, that makes it quite appealing. I think this is probably a premium 2-drop in black. I still think it's going to play it around like about a C, but I think it might be a little better than some of the other 2s that we see. Moment of Glory is a sorcery for white. Put a +1/+1 to counter and target creature you control. It's got flashback for 4 and a white, and if it's cast from a graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Well, on the target and each other. Not something I think you ever want to be casting up front as a sorcery, but it's pretty good if you discard it to recruit, for instance. But I would prefer not to have spells which are really specifically there to discard to recruit. I would prefer if it was like something I would like to cast on its own, and then if I happen to discard it later and I get a bonus from that, cool. The effect of put a +1/+1 counter on each creature is significant, especially if the white decks are making these tokens or going wide. But still, I don't think you'll need to prioritize this. It probably plays out something like a D. Ordinary Bear is an ordinary green 3/4/5 with flavor text. That's a decent body. It's nothing special. You'll probably get as many as you like, but it's going to play out. It's going to play out okay. I think it's just a C. I don't think you'll be too unhappy to have it in your green deck. Bjorn Reluctant Host is green 4 for a 5/5 Trampler, and it's got Till Intent is sorcery, which says you can play an additional land this turn. Doesn't give you the land, doesn't search, it just says you may play an additional land. So I would say 90+% of the time you're reading this as 5/5 trample for 5 mana. Similar-ish to the bear. I think I might actually prefer the bear. A mana cheaper, losing a point of power and trample is significant. I don't think Till Intent really matters. Like, maybe at some point you'll get a landfall trigger, but I think this is probably a little bit worse than the bear. So we had bear at C. I'll say D plus, and I'll actually correct the bear to be a notch above that. So maybe the bear goes down into C minus. Okay. So next card, just some clicking on something random. We have Owen the Brave, 1 red for a 1/3. Storied, as long as you have an enduring story, Owen gets +1/+0 on haste. So it's very likely that by turn 4 you will have storied. I mentioned this just in the very nature of the cards in red and white. It looks like you would have to go out of your way not to have storied turned on at some point in the early stages of the game. Which means when you draw this a little later, it's just a 2/3 haste for 2 mana, which is pretty good. And it has 1 tap, discard a card, draw a card. So it's got a rummage effect too, which helps you filter out those later game lands. Maybe it triggers a draw your second card effect at some point later. I think overall this is decent. Again, it's a quality 2-drop, and I would put it in the same sort of range as some of the others. Let's see where I put the front porch sentries. Yeah, C as well. Excuse me. Gandalf Wandering Wizard. Blue 4 for a legendary avatar creature, avatar wizard. It's 4/5 ward 3. So straight up 4/5 ward 3. So it's not easy. Your opponent can't just point and click and kill it easily. It's a big body for blue, and it has 6 as an activated ability to say the Gandalf's owner shuffles him into their graveyard and draws 3 cards. Okay. I thought it might just be like a shuffle it from the graveyard or something, but no, it's just 6 mana, draw 3. And you might even draw Gandalf again. It's got some flexibility, but it is a chunker, and if you want to use the ability, that's like 11 mana to draw 3 cards. That's not something you'll ever want to do. I'm gonna give it a D+. I think it will be played in some blue decks. Maybe if the game ends up being a sort of a slow as tar control deck that I could see using the ability. But just having a 5 mana big body in blue is you'll be fine with that sometimes. Dwarven Provisioner is next at 1 white for a Dwarf Citizen 2/2. 3 and white, and it says creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. That's fine. I think it just falls into that C category of just being a decent 2. Much like the front porch sentries and the 1/3 guy. We have Ravening Warg, which is a black 1 for a 2/2 wolf with Death Touch, and it has Ferocious. Whenever this attacks while you're ferocious, you gain 2 life. I'm not sure how relevant that life gain ability is. So 2 mana, 2/2 Death Touch. Sure. I think there's a smattering of big bodies. Like we've seen the bear and Bjorn and Gandalf. I think even though some of the uncommons, the big high-stated creatures are maybe a little less common in this set than there might be in other sets, it seems to be more about smaller things, and that means the Death Touch is not as relevant, maybe. It's just my first kind of gut instinct impression from reading the cards that I have so far. And I'm not sure the Ferocious really matters that much, and plus the 2/2 Death Touch is more of I'd say a defensive creature than something that you want to attack with. I think this is a little worse than some of the other 2s, so I'll go C-. I don't think you can really go that low on any remotely playable 2 in Magic these days for limited. As long as they're 2/2s or 2/1 with a decent ability or 1/3 with a decent ability, I think they kind of have a floor of about C-. Iron Hill Stalwart is next, which is red 4 for a 4/5 dwarf warrior with reach and trample, and when it enters, attach equipment to up to one target creature you control. So it can give something equipment. It's just a big body. Um, Very replaceable, I would say. I'm gonna say like D for this. Patient Instructor is 2 and a blue-white hybrid for a 2/2 human citizen with vigilance, and when it enters, you recruit. I'll cover this now with recruit. I mentioned it some of the other points. I think the way recruit ends up working is that you read it as draw and discard, full stop. I think the cost of trading an actual spell and it being and that spell being better as a 1/1 human soldier token in play is going to be quite rare. I think the main benefit of recruit is just the ability to filter through your library and maybe get rid of land cards late to turn them into spells, and also trigger your this does a thing when you draw a second card each turn. So I'm reading this mostly as 3 mana 2/2 vigilance that when it enters, you loot. I think I will be loath or not in a good place if I end up playing this and feeling like I have to make a 1/1 soldier. I'll be disappointed. I think this is quite poor. I don't. It is flexible, but I'm not so much of a fan. I think it's just a little overcosted for the effect. If it were 2 mana, I still don't think it would be amazing. It would be considerably better, but I don't think it like breaks the bank or anything, or like breaks the format rather for if it were 2 mana, and it's not. I'm going to give this a D. We have Confuscate and Bebother. It's an instant that says counter a spell unless its controller pays 4, or you can choose to draw 2 and discard a card. For 3 mana, that's okay. It does let you trigger the draw 2 in your opponent's turn, give it being an instant, and I can imagine it'll counter almost anything. 4 is a lot to tax. Still, it's a little conditional. I don't know how often you're going to pass with 3 mana open in this format. I'm sure I'll end up playing some at some point, but I don't think you'll need to prioritize it. I'm going to say D+. Long-bodied grey dog. Very much looks like an Irish wolfhound. 2/2 for 3 mana for a creature dog. So it's 3 colorless. Flash and reach, and when it enters, create a tapped treasure token. This looks great. So it can eat monsters at flash. It can even trade up in mana with a flyer. It gives you a treasure the following turn. Maybe Confuscate and Bebother plus long-bodied grey dog is actually a great pair of cards to have in your hand. I don't think the grey dog is going to break games or anything, but it does a lot, and it accelerates you from 3 to 5 with the treasure. And it kind of makes you play a bit better by creating the tap treasure, so you don't make the mistake of using it straight away. You can use it on something more expensive. Plus, it could give you instant speed storied. That could matter. I quite like this. I think I'm going to go as high as C+. I don't think many decks will be disappointed with a long-bodied grey puppy. Vow to Erebor is 1 and a white for an instant. Untap creature you control. If it's a dwarf... untap a creature. It gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If it's a dwarf, you put an equipment on it. Meh. D. Replaceable combat trick. Tidings of War sorcery. Amass Goblins 1. Flashback for 3 and a red. If you cast it from your graveyard. Amass Goblins 3. Exactly the same argument we had for the white card. I don't think you really want to be casting this up front much of the time. You can read it as red 3 for a 4/4. No. Yes, you can discard it for the benefit of flashing it back later, but what if you don't have the ability to discard it? It's just junk then. Um, I'm gonna go D minus on this. I don't like it at all. Late Town Lookout's a 1 mana 1/1 when it dies. Recruit. Same argument with Recruit that we made before. It's not something that I think you're supposed to see as a default of making a 1/1. Discarding a spell is a very significant cost. It does mean what later in the game you can just block with this and get a loot, which is fine. Maybe it is one of the few 1-drops in white, so you're happy to have it. But I think I'm gonna start quite low. I would say skip this. We've seen cards that just die into a 1/1 spirit. Sometimes like a 1/1 flyer. They've been good, but not amazing. Like they're not something that you're going, yay, I first picked this. This is considerably worse, I think, than just getting a 1/1 when it dies. I'm gonna go D for Lake Town Lookout, and I would hope to not play many of them in my deck. Enchanted River's Grasp is blue 2 for an aura. Enchant creature. When it enters, tap enchanted creature and remove all counters from it. Creature loses all abilities and doesn't untap. So it's frozen in ice, except it removes all counters, so you don't just stick your opponent with an army that they can never untap. That they have to grow. It will just kill the army. I think this is just a B minus. These have played out pretty well in recent sets. Being able to have that sort of clean way to interact with a creature, with any creature in blue, is pretty important. And we've seen, I don't think we've seen too many ways to disenchant. We've seen a lot of like exile and then bring back effects in blue, but I don't think they've actually been good. Yeah, I think this is fine. You'll play a couple of these in your blue decks. Cruel Bent Blade is black 2 for an artifact equipment. When it enters, target opponent sacrifices a creature of their choice, and for an equip of 2, it gives a creature +2 power, +1 toughness. In other sets, I think this would be a lot better, but 3 mana to like edict your opponent when we've got armies and recruit tokens going around is not something I think you should be doing. 5 mana for that effect and to then equip is a lot. +2/+2 +1 is a relevant addition to stats. Like it will turn most things into a threat. But still, I don't see being super enthused about this. I'm gonna give it a D. Maybe D+. Sometimes it will just kill a 3-drop or something that they have when you both play a 2, they play a 3, you play this. I guess that could kill their 2 instead, and that's not that great. But yeah, something like D or D+. Ragged Short Spear is 1 and a red for an equipment. When it enters, you can discard if you do draw 2. Equip cost of 3 to give a creature +2/+0. Effectively tormenting voice at sorcery that leaves around an expensive equipment. That's okay. I'm not sure in red if you care if you're a deck that cares about discarding a card to draw 2, sort of filtered. So you get rid of this and the card you discard and you replace them, so you're smoothing out your deck. How many of those decks really care about equip 3 for +2/+0? It's obviously sort of free, like if you're playing it for the draw 2 part. I don't think you should play it for the equipment part. But it's not nothing to have that equip effect. I guess it just depends how much you're in the market for 2 mana, discard a card, draw 2. If that's of interest to you, then you'll accept the free equipment that lays around after. If it's not of interest to you, I don't think you look at this card, and I don't think you'll have to Draft them pretty highly. I think it's one of those, if you want one, you'll get one kind of cards. I'll say D+. Hobbit Ol, Halfling Cycling 4, so you can discard it and fetch a Halfling, and it has the Evolving Wilds ability. This looks great. I think Evolving Wilds, like tap, sack a land, search for a basic, and put it onto the battlefield tapped. That's usually a straight up C in every set. I think the Halfling Cycling on this is significant enough to make it better that in some games, in some color combinations, you're just going to be able to go, you know what? The land I drew is now a spell. I'm going to say C+. Addercop is green 1 for a spider. It's a 2/1 reach, death touch, and landfall. It gets +1/+1 until end of turn. A quality 2 in green. It ticks all of the boxes I'm looking for. Given that it has the ability to attack as a 3-power creature very consistently in the early game, and it has that defensive body of just being able to trade with anything as well, it fits into proactive game plans, it fits into good in your curve, it fits into defensive or controlling strategies. I think this is really good. I think this is one of the best 2s I've seen in this set. And I think, I mean, my benchmark has kind of been C for the decent 2s, C+ for the good ones, and then C- for the ones that are a little bit shakier. I think this is enough better than the average one, the kind of middle ground. So I'll give it 2 notches and say B-. I really like this. This like has kind of top common vibes to me. As does Bilbo's Deadly Slice, just a murder reprint, so that's a B. Maybe it's slightly different in this set, given like the creatures are smaller, but yeah, straight up murder, even murdering a 2-drop that's important, you'll always accept that. And having the ability to just destroy anything later, yeah. Mirkwood, indeed. So this one is not elf, but bear, spider, or wolf. So it's black. It's a Bayou land, enters tapped, and then 2 black-green, tap, sack, put 2+1/+1 counters on target boar, spider, or wolf you control. Let's count up boar, spider, and wolf in the creature types. Did it say boar or bear? Bear, spider, and wolf. 6 bears. 2 spiders, that's 8. And 11 wolves. Wow. So that's 19 creatures. That's a lot. I think this gets bumped up a little bit. I will put it at a similar stage to Lake Town. And the rationale here is that black-green is the ferocious color, so getting the counters is actually actively important for that deck. Wood Elves. Green 2 for an Elf Scout. 1/1, when it enters, search your library for a forest card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. How good is this in 2026? I think one of the important aspects of this, given some of the other cards I've seen, is that it's an elf. I'm not sure the ramp matters that much. Is this something I'm happy to play on turn 3? Not especially. On turn 4, when I can play this, get my forest, play my land, play another 2, that's good, but it's still not that great. Like, Wood Elves is good. A net return of draw a forest and play it for 3 mana. Well, like, the forest gives you a mana, so it's kind of 2. But that's still kind of weak sauce for 2026 Limited. I think it'll get played. I don't think it plays out as well as it has in the past. I'm going to say D+, unfortunately. Sorry, Wood Elves. Gollum Silent Slinker. I was going to say Gollum Silent Stinker, which is definitely something you'll run into in any bathrooms at a Magic event. There will always be Silent Stinkers there. And maybe even on the floor too, jeez. But it's a black 3 for a 4/3 halfling horror with menace, and it has meager meal as a sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Target player gains 2 life, and that's for a black mana. Neither of these are particularly exciting. I haven't seen anything that really cares about 2 life. The +1 counter in black can matter. It means that your 3-power creature turns ferocious. But I'm not too thrilled with this. I'm going to rate it pretty low. I think it's like a D plus, maybe. Um, a 4-power menace creature for 4 is still a relevant body, but I think you'll have better choices of 4 in your pool. Dory, Bearer of Friends is red 2 for 3/2 Trampler. When it enters, create a treasure token. This one does not come with the Wolfhound protection of creating a tapped treasure token to make sure you don't use it on something crappy. This just makes a treasure. These cards have been pretty good. 3/2 Trample for 3 is a relevant body. I'm going to give it a C. I think this is a pretty decent 3-drop that you'll be happy in a lot of red decks. Little Bear is 3/2 for green 2 flash. When it enters, untap another target creature you control. If that creature is a bear, put +1/+1 counter on it. And we had 6 bears in the entire set. The counter thing is not going to matter that much. 3 mana flash 3/2. Yeah, you could snipe something. Untapping another creature seems okay. Like, let's say you've played a 3-drop. Turn 4, you play a tap land and pass after attacking with your 3. Like, I can see some interesting tricks with this, but I still don't. I think there are better 3s. Like, I think the long-haired grey dog is significantly better as a 3-mana card. I'm sure Little Bear will fill a curve here or there, but I think overall it's not that great. I'm going to give it a D+. Goblin Town Flunkies is red 1 for a 1/1 haste. When it enters, amass goblins 1. Yeah, I think this is fine. I'm not sure how relevant the 1/1 haste will be, but getting 2 bodies, like, for 2 mana, that's decent. It does start your amass off quite cheaply, so that your future, like, 3 and 4 mana amass cards have something to grow onto, and that makes those a little better. I'm gonna say C for Goblin Town Flunkies. I think it's enough better than some of the, like, weaker 2s that we've seen. Reverent Owl is black 2 for an instant. Choose 1. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life, or a target creature gets +2/+2 and gains a lifelink until end of turn. Instant divination with the ability to be a decent combat trick. Yeah, it's not something that you'll go out of your way to play. Like, we've seen Visions of Villainy in the last set, the Marvel set, which was, again, 3 mana instant, but it could get cheaper. The fact that Visions got cheaper didn't really matter that much, because at the stage of the game where you're casting something like this, it's less mana you're worried about and more cards to cast. I don't think you have to go out of your way with this. I think you will get them if you want, but it's playable. I don't think you'll play more than 1 in a deck. I'm going to give it a C-. Yeah, C- seems okay. If it was just the draw part, I would say D or D+, but the other aspect is relevant. It can change a race, it can help a creature trade or survive combat. Yeah, decent. Long Lake Nuisance is blue 3 for a 3/1 flyer. When it enters, recruit. 4 mana, 3-power flyer with a loot effect. Sure. Again, reading the loot as mostly draw and discard, and then a small percentage of the time you'll discard a spell to make a token. Yeah, this seems solid enough. I don't think it's super exciting. I'll say C-. I'm sure there's other 4s that are better, but yeah, you will play this to fill a point in the curve or just have another aggressive, evasive creature. Stony Voice Goblins is black 1 for a 1/1. When it enters, each opponent discards a card. I think this might be better than we've often seen these effects. I don't think it'll be like Virus Beetle in Neon Dynasty levels. You're not, like, looping this with Nunjutsu or anything, but it does take a full card from your opponent's hand. So that'll put pressure on like recruit loot decisions for them if that after this is in play, like they've already down a card, so it sort of tightens that aspect of them not really being able to afford to as liberally discard a spell. It also trades with a decent number of creatures. Like I haven't looked at the full breakdown, but even just trading for an amass 1/1 or like a 3/1 or a 2/1 or a recruit token is fine. Like you've already gotten the benefit of them losing a full card. That said, I don't think you need to go out of your way. I think some of the other black cards are a bit better. This is a little more controlling. Some of the other black twos have been more aggressive, attacking-y. I'm going to say C- for this. Pinecone Strike is red 1 for an instant. Choose one or both. 3 damage to a creature. If it would die, exile it or destroy target artifact token. So red 1 for 3 damage to a creature. I think you'll just play that in almost every red deck. I'm going to give it a B. Very efficient. Thorin's Last Stand is white 2 for an instant. Choose one. Creatures get +2/+1 on end of turn. Or destroy target artifact or enchantment, you gain 2 life. Depending on what the texture of the format eventually settles on, being instant speed 4 mana, your creatures get +2/+1 can be win the game. And having the out of destroy an artifact or enchantment, that's fine. I think this will be picked something like, and play out on average something like a C- level card, but there will be games and particular decks where this performs more like a B or B+. It'll just be like a mini overrun for a wide board to either kill your opponent or make your crappy monsters trade up into their actual monsters. I don't mean like you're actively playing crappy monsters, I mean your lower statted monsters compared to theirs. Stir Up Trouble is the next. It's black for a sorcery. As an additional cost, sacrifice an artifact or creature or pay 4. Destroy target creature. Plenty of treasure tokens lying around in black. You could even sacrifice a small army before you redeploy for a second army. I'm going to give this a C. Generally settles on something like that. I think it might be a little bit better in this set than other sets, but still in the C range. Like Bone Splinters, I think, is probably like a C-. This is maybe a notch above. Wargling is sorry, 1 colorless and a green for a wolf. It's a 2/2 and it's ferocious. Whenever it attacks while you control a creature with power 4 or greater, until end of turn, this creature gets +1/+0, and creatures you control gain trample, which is obviously a beneficial effect for having ferocious, because it means you've got at least 1 4-power trampler now. 2 mana. If you've got ferocious, it attacks as a 3/2. It's fine. I'm going to say C-. I think it's a little bit below some of the other twos we've seen. I would much prefer the spider in green to this. Mostly because the ferocious part won't actually matter until probably turn 4 for you. So it attacks on turn 3 as a 2/2, it attacks on turn 4 as a 3/2, and maybe gives trample to something, but it's not that you're guaranteed to have ferocious either. At least it looks like you have to do a little more work for ferocious than, say, storied in red-white. So C- for Wargling. Old Thrush is 2 colorless, 1/2 flying bird. When it enters, you gain 2 life. You can search your library for a basic land, reveal it, and shuffle and put the card on top. So I had a nice conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, speaking about the sort of choke point in Magic, that if you are a decent player, the choke point is whether you get to engage with the game, meaning making your land drops and casting your spells. I think these kind of slightly innocuous cards that don't get you an extra card, but it just smooths your draws and allows you to play the game in a more consistent fashion, I think they're just great. I think anything that helps you hit your land drops, make progressive game decisions. And also on this one, we've seen this effect as being a 2-1. But this is a 1-2 flyer, which is a significantly better body at 2-1, and it gives you 2 life. I think this card is secretly very good. Maybe not so secretly, like maybe it's kind of accepted that Old Thrush is great. I think I want to go up to the B- range for this, but I think I'll put the brakes on and say C+. I think this is up there with the best 2-drops that we've seen. I still think it can only be so good. Like, you don't have to search for the land, and unless you're getting that benefit of, I'm using this card to make sure I hit my land drops in the early developmental turns of the game. If you draw this later and you don't want to search for the land, a 1-2 flying for 2 mana that gains 2 life is a nothing, but it's not super exciting. So this is quite time sensitive. But reflecting back to that, as long as I make my land drops, which is the choke point in the game, I'll be able to play good Magic because I've evaluated the cards well, I can play decently, I can make good decisions, but I have to have the tools to be able to allow me to make those decisions, and those two tools are ensuring your land. So C+ for that. Just on the note of the Thrush, to finish off with the land thing, I've also wondered if, and leaving this as an aside, it's a side note to tier lists, but as a limited point in general, what if we should be playing 18 lands? 17 lands is sort of the solved problem for 40-card limited decks. We've adjusted our evaluation of the spells, we've adjusted evaluation of game plans and strategies many times over the decades since drafting and sealed decks started being a thing. We've never questioned 17 lands. I'm not saying that it's wrong, I'm saying if the choke point of a game in Magic is the land, maybe playing more lands to make sure you have the land drops, and then mitigate the potential for flood by having more loot effects, more 2-for-1 effects, more ways to use your mana later, more mana sinks, but just making sure that you are that much less likely to miss your formative turn land drops. Oh, it's discussion for another time, but I'm just going to plant that seed there and maybe make some people who hear or view this angry by saying you should play 18 lands in every set. Okay. Dwarven Shortsword is white 3 for a equipment. When it enters, you make a 2/2 dwarf, then attach this equipment to it. Equipped creature gets +1/+2, and it is equipped 2. So 4 mana 3/4 that dies into equip 2 for +1/+2. Yeah, I like that. I don't think it's super exciting. It'll probably play out like a C or a C-. I won't be unhappy to have this in my deck in white. Smog's Fury is white, red 1 for an instant. Target creature gets +3/+0 and gains a reach and first strike on end of turn. Decent combat trick. I think it's dangerous to play this defensively and like, I'll make my random creature reach and be able to block and take out your flying attacker. You don't want to do that. You're just asking for trouble. Yes, you can cast combat tricks defensively, but there is always that aspect of, I hope this resolves and I get to block. Yeah, it's fine if you want a combat trick. It's there. It's probably a D+. Nori, Teller of Tales, is 1 and a Boros hybrid for a 2/2 Dwarf Bard legend. When it attacks, target attacking creature gains first strike on end of turn. We've seen Boros for a 2/1. This creature attacks as a first striker, but this can share it around, and it's a 2/2, and it fits into any red or white color combination. I think this is one of those creatures that is a 2-drop that is just that little bit better than the like middle ground C level 2 that it requires that bump up to C+. Yes, it's an aggressive card. You want to be attacking with it, and maybe it has to pick the first strike to survive. But like attacking with this, making something else difficult to block, or maybe just not blocked, and then trading this off, that's not nothing. I think mostly it wins there because it's a quality 2 that has hybrid mana. Gundabat Opportunist is red 3 for a Goblin Rogue 4/2. When it enters, exile the top card of your library. Until your next turn, you may play that card. Very similar to Crimson Dynamo in Marvel, and one of the tips I was giving people for the draft, like for competitive drafts, for Marvel, the main focus in that set was, or the main consideration for drafter was just blue-white was best and black-red was atrocious and you shouldn't play it. But I think I figured out how to play black-red early, and this will link into Gundabat Opportunist. You've got the removal in black-red, right? You've got things that can trade off. You've got shitty monsters. You've got ravenous rats, right? Those kind of effects. So you have a game plan where you play those kind of cards. You trade off 1 for 1, and then you make up your card advantage later. You're like having more resources and more stuff than your opponent with cards like Gundabat Opportunist. In Marvel, the red had the Crimson Dynamo, Jessica Jones, Blazing Crescendo, another one I'm forgetting, had Daredevil at rare. All of those cards like let you exile stuff and then cast it, like either this turn or until the end of the next turn. So it just had that kind of inbuilt 2 for 1. Like, those are good effects in Magic. I still think the Opportunist lands at about a C. But if you have a deck that has a game plan of, I will trade off my early game resources, and then at some point later, I will play Opportunist, draw a card from it, and now have a significant enough body to trade off, and now I'm up this other card that I exiled. That's a good thing. Like, if you keep doing effects like that, you will end up with more stuff than your opponent. You will win the game. Bellside Wanderers is green 4 for a 4/4 landfall. This gets +2/+2, so you can kind of read it as... I don't think you can read it as a 6/6. Maybe like every second turn, it's a 6/6. Because you do have to get like 6 out of your 17 lands in play before you get to play the Wanderers itself. But when it enters, look at the top 4 cards of your library, reveal a permanent among them, put it into your hand. 6 mana 4/4, Anticipate is a strong card. We just spoke about the idea of having this trade-off game plan and then catching up with something that gives you access to additional resources. This does exactly that. Plus, yeah, you can get more than 1 land into play. This could be attacking as an 8/8. I don't think you need to prioritize it. It's very expensive. It's one of those, if you want one, you'll get one kind of cards. It's also an elf, which does matter for a bunch of cards in the set. I think I'm still going to land on something like a C. Mirkwood Meditator is blue 2 for an elf druid 2/4 landfall. You may have this base power and toughness become 4/2. 2/4 for 3 mana is a decent defensive body. The problem is, if you do turn it into a 4/2 because you're attacking, in principle, yeah, you play a land in your turn, it becomes 4/2 because you want to attack with it, but it'll trade down a lot of the time. I'm not super into this. I think it's probably like a D+. Ori, Keeper of Songs, white 2 for a 3/3 storied, and if you have the Enduring Story, it's 4/3 and it has Vigilance. 4/3 for 3 mana. Again, it looks very difficult not to be storied by turn 3 or 4 in white. Like maybe turn 3.5 is the average storied turn. Like just playing a 2-drop and then playing the 3 mana guy that makes a treasure. Oh, you're storied. If it was just 3 mana 4/3 Vigilance, how happy would I be? And I think the answer is pretty damn happy. I'm going to say C+ for Ori. Assuming that I am correct with story being trivial to turn on. All right, we're into the home stretch. About 20 cards to go. Warg Tactics, white. I keep messing up these colors. Green and 1 instant, choose one, destroy a creature with flying, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control against trample and hexproof until end of turn. I think that's probably around a C-. Normally, I think I would have this a bit lower, like a D or a D plus. But the fact that you have instant speed, oh, now I have ferocious, that could be something. And yeah, giving trample and hexproof to some when the opponent tries to remove it, like that's significant. Like imagine you're setting up combat, you go, okay, I'm going to remove your creature to make this attack clean, and you cast your removal spell. They respond with this, protect their blocker. Now you don't have attacks, and you've used your mana for the turn, and that sucks. And yeah, that's all gravy. Um, Still, I'm not sure needs to be prioritizing. And if you do snag a flyer with this, it's pretty good. Lakeshore Apothecary is white, blue 1 for a 1/2 vigilance. Whenever you draw your second card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Meh. Like, if it was just 2/3 vigilance for 2 mana, would we be that excited? Like, that's okay. But I mean, maybe you get to continuously draw your second card. Like, we've seen these effects. I'd mentioned very earlier on Lake Town. Like, if you have the benefit of when you draw a second card, get a bonus, you want that cycle to happen over and over again. You want to kind of stretch out the game. The fact that I have to put work into this before I can really get it to tussle in combat makes me not interested. I'm going to say D. It may play out a bit better, but not unplayable, but it's going to be in my sideboard or like the last card picked in a pack a lot. Iron Hills, yep, this is the red-white land, enters tapped, and then 2 red-white tap sack, put 2 +1/+1 counters, and it is indeed a dwarf target, and you activate as a sorcery. As I mentioned, I think this is a little bit worse than the others, so I'm going to say C, just for the reason that even though, yes, you want a multi-land like this in any color combination, red-white looks kind of aggressive, and it looks like it might lean on ones a little bit. So I'll just notch this down that little bit. The black-red version, this targets an orc or goblin. I'm going to notch this down a little bit as well. Not necessarily because of the ones and the mana development, but because the target orc or goblin, a lot of those are going to be armies, which already have the ability to get counters and grow because they're an army. So you may not need this as much as the others. So I will also say C for this. Duskwatch Hunter is 2 and a Golgari for 3/1. It cannot be blocked by tokens, and when it enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It's okay. I don't think it's anything to be overly excited by. Putting a counter on something else is sort of like the 1/1 part can have haste. You can also make this as a 4/2, so it's like 3 mana instant ferocious. That's good. I think that aspect of it being like a single card for 3 mana that gives you ferocious makes me bump it up a little, so I'll give it a C. Easy Partings is blue 3 for an instant. It costs 1 less if it targets an attacking non-token creature, so you can't just kill their army cheap. Target creatures, it's Riptide. Target creature's owner puts it on their choice of top or bottom of their library. It doesn't have an extra bonus apart from being a mana cheaper. Like, there's no Scry, Surveil. Like, Connive was with Trickster Stratagem. That was a sorcery speed version, and it cost 4, but it was one of the better commons in the previous set. This not being able to target an attack, get the cost reduction because it can't target an attacking token isn't great. Being able to reset an army is good, like just 4 mana, destroy an army effectively. I think this probably plays out as a C+ still. Those cards have just performed. The baseline of 4 mana Riptide effect like that is very, very slightly too low for something like a C+ grade. It is just an average card, but it takes just that tiny little aspect, like a loot, a surveil, a scry, a mana reduction, to get it into that range, into that C+ level. Elven King's Harper is blue 1 for an elf bard at 2/2, and it's got blue 4, target creature can't be blocked this turn. I don't know how often you're going to use the ability. Maybe being an elf matters, like, especially in the rare and mythic. I feel like I kept seeing things that cared about elves because I checked how many elves are in the set a few times. I still think this is probably like a C minus. Like the ability here, it's not nothing, but it's going to be very rare that spending 5 mana to activate that is the best place for you to spend your 5 mana at some point in the game. The blue-green multi-land puts 2 counters on an elf. I'm going to give this a bit of a bump, and the reason is, again, it's just a sense, kind of memory of looking at the card so far. There seemed like it feels like there was more green and blue pips in some of the cards. Like one of the examples is the double green 6 mana card that lets you look at the top 4. That's in the last like 10 cards we've looked at. I do feel like in blue-green there's slightly more blue and green pips than in others. That's just enough of a marker to delineate that from some of the others, so I'll put that in the C+ category. Triple B, Bilbo Baggins Burglar, blue 2. That's quadruple B. It's a 2/1. When it enters, draw a card. And it has an adventure, which is Take a Glance, sorcery for a blue, scry 2. This looks like the best common in the set. It looks like it's better than many of the uncommons. If limited magic is about 2-for-1s, you can't really ask for more. And yes, I know, it's not technically drawing. Scry 2 is damn near draw a card. If those are 2 lands, it's draw 2 cards. Don't fool yourself into thinking that that sort of library manipulation is not functionally identical to drawing a card. Not always, but it can be, and it can be even better. Maybe this is even a B. I think it might even be B+. Yeah. Best common. Giant's Boulder is a colorless artifact for 1. When it enters, scry 2. Again, similar to draw a card, especially in the early game, like when it helps you filter for the lands you need. Like I said, making those decisions about deck manipulation decisions, which allow you to progress your game by hitting your land drops. Filters mana, 1 tap, add 1 mana of any color, and then at some stage 7 tap, sack it, destroy target permanent. This is very similar to the Thrush for me. It's comparable, slightly different, but I'm going to put it in the C+ range. I think if you start a draft with this or the Thrush, you'll be doing something right, and I think you'll end up being happy a lot of the time. It's not about power level, it's just about those cards which let you progress the game and make gameplay decisions by making sure you hit your land drops and you get your sequences correct. I'm not saying you're jumping up for joy if this is the card you end up picking first. You probably aren't, because you'll be missing out on a powerful rare that, like, your neighbors got to pick one and you ended up with this crappy common. I'm just saying it's considerably better than it might look. That's my read anyway. Yeah, and being able to slot in for a mana later just to get the scry 2, fix their subsequent draws, get rid of extra lands, that's great. And the out of just 7 mana, kill whatever you need to in a later game. This looks fantastic to me. Guardian of the Halls is 1 and a green for a 2/2 trample, and 5 green, put 3 counters on this creature. How often are we going to spend 7 mana on this? The game would have to be dragging out, but I mean, we've seen this effect. Like, board stall, draw, pass the turn with no action, end of your turn, put 3 counters, on tap, put 3 more counters. It's an 8/8 trampler. And it's an elf. I think this might go into the C+ range of those 2s. Yeah, I think this has got enough going for it. Rage into the Valley is a black 2 for a sorcery. You draw a card and lose a life, amass goblins 2. So 3 mana 2/2, draw a card, lose a life. That looks pretty great. Like, Hero in Training was it the best? Yeah, it was the best common. This is not, it's not Bilbo. Like, losing a life matters, but it's damn close. I think this is a B. Like, it doesn't have the adventure part, which is what made me kind of nudge Bilbo Baggins Burglar up. I think this is just a B. Like, this is excellent. Like, thinking late in the game as well, where you've already got like a 3/3 army and you go, oh well, I'll play this, make it a 5/5, draw a card and lose a life. And if you don't have an army, it's just Hero in Training that you lose a life because it's black. It's great. Esgoroth Garrison is white 4 for a human soldier, star 5. Power and toughness equal to the number of creatures you control when it enters recruit. All of those aspects are good apart from the 5 mana. Gives you slightly more incentive to want to create the token from their recruit because it will boost its power, but on turn 5, you're really discarding a spell instead of just keeping it and casting it the following turn. I'm down on this. Maybe I'm down on recruit too much. Maybe you do make tokens more often than I suspect, but I'm going to give this a D. Maybe a D plus. Like when I'm actually going to keep climbing up. So the reason I did all that is 5 mana. It's going to be big. It'll be a 4/5, 5/5, 6/5 pretty reliably, and having a when it enters loot, that's good. Like you don't have to discard a spell to make the recruit token. So I think I've corrected myself on that. I think it might end up, C minus. Like there's only so high that like a limited effect 5-drop can be. Plunder the Troll Shows is 1 and a blue for an instant. Draw a card if it was flashed back or otherwise cast from a graveyard. Draw 2 cards instead for blue and 3. I spoke about this. Don't put these cards in your deck unless you actually want the front end. Thing is, I think the front end on this is fine. Just cycling. It is a cost. It takes mana to make that game action, but unlike some of the others that have just this really underwhelming effect, draw a card are 3 of the most powerful words in Magic, so I'm going to give this a C. Mirkwood Nurture is 2 at a Simic mana for a 3/2 Elf Ranger. When it enters, return up to 1 target permanent you control to its owner's hand. If you do, put a counter on this. So it can reset other come into play abilities. You can bring back a land to trigger landfall again and have it as a 4/3. 3 mana 4/3 automatic ferocious plus other effects. I gave the Duskwatch Hunter a C. I think I'm going to give this C+. I think this is better. This is the best common ferocious enabler that I've seen so far. Well-Worn Spatula is colorless artifact equipment. When it enters, you gain 2 life. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and equip 1. Short sword with 2 life. Kind of disappointing it's not a food. I don't know if we really care about the 2 life. So I'm reading this mostly as short sword. It is an equipment for storied. That's a thing. I'll say D+, C-, something like that. It's an equipment you'll begrudgingly play, and like it's not the end of the world, and +1/+1 for a single mana is an okay effect. Quarrel, green 1 for an instant. It's just Rabid Bite. Yeah, that's a B. Creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature an opponent controls. Play pretty much as many of those as you can get in green. Goblin Plate Mail is 1 and a Rakdos hybrid for an artifact equipment. When it enters, amass 1. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 and menace, and it's got equip 4, but it auto equips to the amassed army. So you play it and you get a 1/1 amass token, and that then has +2/+0 and menace. And when that dies, it leaves around this 4 mana equipment. This looks pretty good. I think this is in the good tier of quality 2s. I'll be taking this early and often, I would say. Great Fierce Bee, black 2 for a 2/2 flying insect. Whenever 1 or more creatures die, scry 1. Windrake with slight upside. It's been a long time since Windrake was that good. Still, it's not nothing. I'm going to say C-. And lastly, we've got Velvet Wing Butterflies. Black Velvet. Proper goth style. 2 and a white mana for a 2/2 flying insect. Fits into that category of Windrake maybe not being good enough. what did we give the B? C minus. The adventure for this, though, Gaze and Wonder, 1 and a white for an instant, tap 1 or 2 target creatures. That's pretty great. There was a card like this in Eldraine, white 1 for a 2/3 flyer. And it had this instant as well of tap 2 target creatures. That was one of the best commons in the set. I'm not sure so many years on Velvet Wing Butterfly is as good. I think it's enough better than the B that we use the B as a reference point, which was C minus. Is this a notch above? Is it 2? I think it's 2. Like let's sort of play this out. It's turn 4. You've played a 2 and a 3. On turn 4, you pass. They go to their attack step. You cast Gaze and Wonder, tap 2 creatures. Maybe you've played another 2-drop on turn 4 as well. So now you untap. You've got 3 creatures in play. It's turn 5. You play the butterflies. You've got 2 mana left. Maybe you play another 2. This again, thinking about those sequences of 2s, so much. If you want to go through that sequence, you need a 2-drop on turn 2, 2-drop on turn 4, 2-drop on turn 5. That's why the 2s are so important. They fit into so many places in the mana curve. It's tricky that it's not great to use aggressively. Like on turn 5, would 5 mana, tap 2 of their creatures, play this. How good is that? It's probably okay. I'll give this a C overall. I don't think it goes 2 notches above where the B was. And the body isn't. It's okay, but it's still just a 2/2 flyer. And that is it. I think I have completed my first pass at the tier list. I'm pretty pleased with how it's gone. I will click this seal deck link now. And the reason I want to do that is to look at the distribution and see how it looks. Am I out of place? Do we have something akin to a normal distribution? And it's not a million miles off. I tend to have a bunch of Fs because you will end up with some weird constructed or commandery type cards that just don't have any home in limited. So the grading kind of starts at D. So at A, we're dropping. We don't have many B pluses. So maybe some of these Bs fill in here. Maybe some of them fill up here. But yeah, this looks like a realistic distribution of grades. So I'm pretty pleased that it naturally fell like that. If you're wondering, because of the way the games work out when you eventually turn these grades into win percentages, which the way 17 lands do it, they find out whatever the average win percentage is and say that's a C. And then they divide 6 places to the above the C and and some number of places below the C, and each of those is a step. So 1 step away from the average, plus or minus, for each letter grade. So that's kind of what I would expect. The best cards, let's have a look at the A's here. So Arkenstone, couple of green cards, couple of black cards, couple of red cards, couple of white cards. Blue seemed to get a bit of a short end of the stick. The density, like if you just look at the colors, blue only starts to kind of kick out around B minus to C. Black has a bunch between B and A minus. White has some as well, but I think they're kind of slower, more controlling-y cards. Interesting. I'll share my link in the description. I'll be very pleased with any feedback or opinions. Thanks very much for listening. I'm going to save this and upload it now and leave my contact details as well if you want to get in touch. For anyone that I know personally, just reach out. Tell me what you think. If you've listened or viewed, is anything really strange? did you kind of do a double take on any of the comments? How I made mistakes? Like I may very well have misread some cards and evaluated in a way that's just not correct. Yeah, thanks very much for listening. I'll be back when Hobbit launches. I'll be doing some reviews of my own draft, some dives, and maybe making some puns about like, what did I call it? Thorough review of an arena magic play, or tramp for short. So we'll be having some Hobbit tramps when the set launches on Tuesday. All right, all the best.